Take that damn sign down, Julian, or I swear to God I'll take it down with your face. My son-in-law didn't even flinch. He just held his expensive craft beer, adjusted his designer glasses, and smiled at the crowd of wealthy local clients sipping champagne on the patio. It's a celebration, Marshall. Don't be so sensitive. Everyone knows you're finally moving out of the carriage house tomorrow. We're just giving you a proper send-off. In the middle of the perfectly manicured lawn stood a professional 6-foot wooden sign, painted to look like a county eviction notice. But instead of legal text, it had a caricature of me holding a vintage suitcase, with bold letters screaming, "Vance and Kincaid Outdoor Living, under new management, junk successfully cleared." 40 high-paying clients laughed. My daughter Chloe turned her back, pretending to examine a hydrangea bush. "You think this is funny?" I asked, my voice flat, holding back 30 years of factory floor rage. "We think it's time you moved on," Julian whispered, his face inches from mine. "You don't fit the brand anymore, Marshall. You're yesterday's trash." My name is Marshall Vance. I am 58 years old. I have grease permanently embedded under my fingernails and a lower back that screams every time the humidity spikes, the result of 3 decades of running heavy fabrication machinery in South Columbus. And until 9 days ago, I lived in the carriage house behind my daughter Chloe's estate in New Albany, a quiet, sprawling suburb where people spend more on their landscaping than I made in my entire 30s. I moved in after my wife passed away. 2 years ago, the house felt too empty, and Chloe suggested we pool our resources. I sold my old place, gave them a massive chunk of the proceeds to help buy their 3-acre lot, and moved into the carriage house above their detached garage. I paid $1,200 a month in rent. I mowed their lawn. I repaired their Bobcat loader when the hydraulic lines blew. I laid the custom flagstone patio they were currently standing on, spending 3 weeks on my knees in the July heat, while Julian drank iced coffee and told me I was missing a spot. I was not a freeloader. I was the spine of their household. But to Julian and Chloe, I was just an embarrassing reminder of where they came from. Chloe had started Vance and Kincaid Outdoor Living 3 years ago. She had the design degree, but Julian had the ego. Together, they marketed themselves as the premier luxury outdoor creators for the Columbus elite. My rough hands, my faded flannel shirts, and my old Ford F-150 parked in the driveway didn't fit the luxury aesthetic. They wanted me gone. And instead of a quiet conversation, they decided to turn my exit into a marketing stunt, a literal joke to show their high society friends that they had finally cut the dead weight. I stood there on the flagstone patio I had built, looking at the laughing faces of people who had never worked a day of hard labor in their lives. I didn't yell. I didn't smash Julian's designer glasses into his face, though every muscle in my right arm pleaded with me to do it. Instead, I took out my phone. I stepped back, framed the shot, and took a high-resolution photo of the sign. Then I took another wider shot, capturing the sign, the house number, and Julian holding his beer with a smug grin. Finally, I recorded a 10-second video, slowly panning from the sign to the laughing crowd, catching Chloe's face as she finally looked up and realized what I was doing. Her smile died. "Marshall, put the phone away," Julian said, his voice dropping its playful edge. "Don't make a scene." "Have a great party," I said. I walked back to the carriage house, picked up the 4 cardboard boxes I had packed the night before, and loaded them into the bed of my truck. I didn't look back as I pulled out of the driveway. I drove straight to Lewis Center, to the workshop of my oldest friend, Caleb Montgomery. Caleb and I have known each other since we were getting sunburned in the bleachers at Ohio State games in the late 80s. He runs a custom welding shop, a cluttered, metal-scented sanctuary where we've spent countless Saturdays drinking cheap beer and fixing things that other people would have thrown away. When I pulled up, Caleb was sitting on a metal stool, wiping grease off a torque wrench. He took one look at my face, then at the boxes in the back of my truck, and set the wrench down. "They did it?" Caleb asked. I didn't say anything. I just handed him my phone and played the video. Caleb watched it twice. His jaw clenched so tight I thought his teeth would crack. "That miserable little parasite," Caleb muttered, referring to Julian. "And Chloe just stood there?" "She looked at the flowers," I said. Caleb handed the phone back and stood up. "You're staying in my spare room, for as long as you need. No rent. If you try to hand me $1, I'll throw it in the scrap bin." "Thanks, Caleb." "What's the play, Marshall? You aren't just going to let this slide. I know that look." "Revenge is a lot like welding," I said, looking out at the gravel lot. "If you rush it, the joint is brittle and it breaks under pressure. You have to prep the metal, set the heat just right, and take your time." The first step of the prep work started on Monday morning. I didn't call a lawyer. I called Evelyn Croft. Evelyn is a certified public accountant and a forensic tax attorney who operates out of a quiet, unassuming brick building in Westerville. She has handled my taxes, my late wife's estate, and my personal finances for 25 years. She is 71 years old, has the grandmotherly demeanor of someone who bakes cookies, and possesses a mind like an iron trap. She can spot a hidden liability or a forged asset sheet from 3 miles away. I sat in her office on Monday afternoon, the smell of old paper and fresh coffee filling the room. I laid a manila folder on her desk. Evelyn, I need you to pull up the corporate filings for Vance & Kincaid Outdoor Living LLC from 2022, I said. She adjusted her reading glasses and tapped away at her keyboard. I remember this one, Marshall. That was when Chloe and Julian had that disastrous commercial project in Dublin. The client sued them for using substandard stone, and they were on the verge of total bankruptcy. Exactly. They needed cash, and they needed it in 48 hours to pay off the supplier and settle the lawsuit. And you gave them $85,000, Evelyn said, her eyes scanning the screen. Out of your retirement fund. I did, but Caleb told me to protect myself. He had his nephew, who's a corporate lawyer, draw up a simple silent partnership agreement. It was notarized at a local bank on State Route 3. Do you still have the copy? Evelyn opened a physical filing cabinet behind her, flipped through a few folders, and pulled out a stapled document. Right here, 51% controlling interest in the LLC, held by Marshall Vance, until the $85,000 is repaid in full with a fixed 5% annual interest. She looked up, her sharp eyes locking onto mine. Have they made a single payment, Marshall? Not 1 cent, I said. Every time I brought it up, Julian told me they were reinvesting the capital to grow the brand. He said my 51% was just a formality on paper. It is never just a formality on paper, Evelyn said, a cold smile touching her lips. This agreement gives you full voting control over all major financial decisions, including asset liquidation, debt acquisition, and corporate restructuring. And according to my records, they are currently listing you as a simple, passive investor with zero liability, which is a major compliance violation on their tax filings. It gets better, I said, sliding a second document across her desk. This came to my mail forwarding address on Thursday. It was sent to me by mistake because my name is still on the title of the Delaware property. Evelyn picked up the paper. It was a preliminary loan disclosure from Oak Valley Bank. A business expansion loan, she murmured. For $350,000. Julian is trying to buy a massive commercial warehouse in Delaware, Ohio, to move their operations out of their home, I explained. To secure the loan, the bank is requiring collateral. Julian used the 6-acre commercial yard in Delaware that I inherited from my uncle. He co-owns it with Chloe, but my name is on 50% of the deed. Evelyn leaned forward, her interest fully piqued. Did you sign the authorization for the collateral lien? I didn't even know about it until this letter arrived, I said. Julian submitted a signature page claiming he had my power of attorney as a managing partner of the LLC. He forged my consent, Evelyn. The room went dead silent for 10 seconds. The only sound was the low hum of the air conditioner. Marshall, Evelyn said, her voice dropping to a whisper. That is not just a civil dispute. That is bank fraud. If you present this to Oak Valley Bank, they will not only reject the loan, but they will also refer Julian to the state prosecutor's office. I don't want him in jail, I said calmly. Jail is too clean. In jail, he gets to play the victim. He'll tell Chloe and all their high society friends that the mean old father-in-law ruined his life out of spite. I want him to look at the sign he hung on his lawn every single day for the rest of his life and realize he built his own gallows. What do you want me to do? I want you to prepare a complete, certified financial audit of Vance & Kincaid Outdoor Living. I want a formal notice of corporate control based on my 51% stake. And I want a cease and desist letter regarding the unauthorized use of the Delaware property as collateral. Put it all in a professional leather binder, the kind of binder that makes bankers sweat. Evelyn smiled, a genuine, terrifying smile of a seasoned professional about to dismantle an amateur. It will be ready by Thursday afternoon, Marshall. The next 12 days were quiet. I stayed at Caleb's place, working in his shop, helping him weld custom iron railings for a project in German Village. The work was hard, the sparks were hot, and my muscles ached, but it felt good. It felt clean. Every blow of the hammer was a reminder of who I was. I was a builder. I wasn't the junk that Julian wanted to clear out. I ran into Julian once during those 12 days. It was on a Tuesday morning at Ohio Stone Supply in Westerville. I was loading a few bags of gravel into the back of my Ford when Julian's luxury SUV pulled up. He stepped out, wearing his spotless leather loafers and a polo shirt with his company logo embroidered on the chest. He saw me and stopped. For a second, he looked like he might turn around, but his arrogance got the better of him. He walked over, his boots crunching loudly on the gravel. "Still driving the old rust bucket, Marshall?" he asked, gesturing to my truck. "I figured you'd have upgraded by now with all that rent money you're saving." "It runs fine, Julian," I said, not looking up as I stacked the final bag. "Look, about the sign," Julian said, his tone dripping with fake sympathy. "Chloe was a little upset that you took it seriously. It was just a joke for the clients. In our line of work, branding is everything. We can't have the face of our company looking like, well, like a retired factory worker. You understand." "I understand completely," I said, wiping my brow with the back of my hand. "Good, because we hired a new creative director, and she's moving into the carriage house this Friday. I hope you've got all your junk out of there." "Everything is out," I said. "I left it cleaner than I found it." "Glad to hear it. Oh, by the way, we're finalizing our expansion loan this week. We're buying the new warehouse. It's a huge step for us. Real business, not just fixing loaders in a garage." "Congratulations, Julian," I said, climbing into the driver's seat of my Ford. "I hope the meeting goes exactly the way you deserve." He laughed, a short, dismissive sound. "Thanks, Marshall. Take care of yourself." I drove away, watching him in my rearview mirror as he walked into the stone supply office, completely unaware that the ground beneath his feet was already crumbling. On Thursday evening, I drove to Marion, Ohio, to a small metal fabrication shop run by a guy named Dave, an old friend of Caleb's. I had sent him a digital design file on Tuesday. When I walked in, Dave was waiting for me with a massive, heavy-duty sheet of industrial steel, freshly cut by a precision CNC plasma table. He lifted the sheet, showing me the clean, sharp letters burned into the metal. It was beautiful, it was heavy, it was permanent. "This is some serious work, Marshall," Dave said, running a gloved hand over the steel. "You want me to powder coat it?" "No," I said. "Leave it raw. I want it to rust, naturally. It gives it character." "You got it. That'll be $45. I paid him in cash. $45 for a piece of steel that was going to cost Julian everything. Friday morning arrived, June 20th. The sun was hot, and the air was thick with humidity. I woke up at 7, showered, and put on the charcoal suit I had bought for my mother's funeral 3 years ago. It was a good suit, heavy wool, tailored, the kind of clothes a man wears when he has to make a statement. I met Evelyn at her office at 9. She was wearing a sharp navy blazer and holding a thick brown leather portfolio. "Everything is in here, Marshall," she said, tapping the leather. "The corporate audit, the 51% stake verification, the title deed for the Delaware land, and the forensic analysis of Julian's forged signature on the preliminary loan documents. I also had my attorney friend draft a formal petition for corporate injunction. If they don't sign your terms, we file this at the county courthouse at 11:30. The loan will be dead, the business will be frozen, and Julian will have a visit from the sheriff's department by Monday." "Perfect," I said. "Let's go to the bank." The Oak Valley Bank headquarters was a gleaming glass tower in downtown Columbus. The lobby was all marble and polished chrome, designed to make regular people feel small. We took the elevator to the 4th floor, where the commercial lending division was located. At exactly 9:55, Caleb called Chloe's cell phone. I had told him to call her and say that Julian's SUV had been backed into in the parking garage down the street. It was a simple distraction, just enough to get her to look at her phone and step away from the boardroom for 60 seconds before the meeting officially started. When Evelyn and I walked into the glass-walled conference room on the 4th floor, Julian was sitting at the massive mahogany table, looking over a stack of documents. A man in a sharp gray suit, who introduced himself as Marcus Albright, the senior commercial loan officer, sat opposite him. Chloe was standing near the window, her phone to her ear, looking panicked. "What do you mean backed into?" she was saying into the receiver. "Which garage? Julian, did you park in the green lot?" She hung up, her face pale, and turned around. That was the moment she saw me. Julian looked up from his papers, his smug smile instantly vanishing. He stood up so fast his chair scraped loudly against the hardwood floor. "Marshall?" Julian stammered. "What the hell are you doing here? This is a private commercial meeting." "Mr. Kincaid, Mrs. Kincaid," Evelyn Croft said, her voice cool and authoritative as she stepped into the room. "My name is Evelyn Croft. I am the legal and financial representative for Marshall Vance. We are here to participate in the loan review for Vance and Kincaid Outdoor Living LLC. Marcus Albright, the banker, blinked in confusion. He looked at Julian, then at Evelyn, then at me. "Mr. Kincaid, I thought you stated that you and your wife were the sole managing partners with full authority to secure this debt." "We are," Julian said, his voice rising an octave. "Marshall is he's her father. He has nothing to do with the day-to-day operations. Marshall, get out of here. You're embarrassing yourself." I didn't say a word. I walked to the table, pulled out a heavy leather chair, and sat down. Evelyn sat next to me, opening the leather portfolio with a smooth, practiced motion. "Mr. Albright," Evelyn said, sliding a certified copy of the 2022 agreement across the polished wood. "My client, Marshall Vance, holds a 51% controlling interest in Vance and Kincaid Outdoor Living LLC. This interest was established as collateral for an $85,000 cash injection that has not been repaid. Under Section 4 of this agreement, any debt acquisition exceeding $10,000 requires the express, written consent of the majority stakeholder. My client has not provided that consent." Albright's eyes widened. He picked up the document, his reading glasses slipping down his nose as he scanned the signatures. This is a notarized corporate operating agreement." "It is," Evelyn said. "Furthermore, the 6-acre property in Delaware listed as collateral for this $350,000 loan is co-owned by Marshall Vance and Chloe Kincaid. Julian Kincaid submitted a preliminary authorization form bearing a signature that purports to be my client's." Evelyn slid a second document across the table. It was a copy of the loan application, side by side with my actual signature from my driver's license, verified by a certified document analyst. "This signature is a forgery, Mr. Albright," Evelyn said, her voice dropping to a deadly, quiet register. "If Oak Valley Bank approves this loan based on these documents, you will be securing debt against a property without the legal owner's consent, utilizing a forged instrument. My client is prepared to file a formal complaint with the Ohio Department of Commerce and the Regional Prosecutor's Office by noon today." Julian's face went from pale to a deep, toxic purple. He looked at the documents on the table, then at Chloe, who had collapsed into a chair, her eyes wide with terror. "Julian," Chloe whispered, her voice trembling. "What did you do?" I was going to tell him," Julian stammered, his polished, confident facade completely shattering. "Marshall, come on. It was just a formality. We were going to pay you back as soon as the new warehouse was operational. We're family." "Family?" I said. It was the first time I had spoken since entering the room. My voice was low, but it filled the glass boardroom like a physical weight. Family doesn't put a 6-foot eviction sign on their front lawn to humiliate their father in front of 40 clients, Julian. Julian looked like he had been struck. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Marcus Albright slowly took off his reading glasses and closed the loan file in front of him. He looked at Julian with an expression of pure, professional disgust. "Mr. Kincaid," Albright said, his voice cold as ice, "this meeting is over. The loan application is rejected, and I suggest you contact your legal counsel immediately, because our compliance department will be reviewing this file for fraudulent submission." "No, please, Marcus, wait," Julian pleaded, leaning over the table. "We can fix this. Marshall, please tell him. We can work something out." I reached into Evelyn's portfolio and pulled out a single sheet of paper. I slid it across the table to Julian. "We can work something out," I said. "This is a buyout agreement." Julian grabbed the paper like a drowning man reaching for a rope. He read it, his eyes darting back and forth. $125,000? $125,000, I repeated. "That is the original $85,000 I gave you, plus the 5% interest accumulated over 3 years, plus $40,000 for the value of my equipment, my labor on your patio, and the rent I paid while you treated me like a servant." "We don't have that kind of cash," Julian cried. "Our operating capital is tied up in the seasonal inventory." "You have it in your personal savings account," Evelyn Croft said, not looking up from her notes. "The account you established after selling your luxury SUV last month. You have exactly $142,000 in that account, Mr. Kincaid." We checked. Julian looked at Chloe. She was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. She looked at me, her eyes pleading. "Dad," she sobbed, "please, don't do this to us. We'll lose everything." "You won't lose everything, Chloe," I said, my heart aching a little, but my resolve remaining as hard as the steel sign in my truck. "You'll just lose your pride, and that's a cheap price to pay for what you did." "There is one more condition," I said, placing an 8x10 glossy photograph on the table. It was the photo of the lawn sign. The caricature of me as a freeloader, clear as day, with the New Albany estate in the background, and Julian's laughing guests visible on the patio. "You are going to write a letter," I said, "both of you. A handwritten, signed letter of apology. It will state that the sign you displayed was a lie, that Marshall Vance funded 51% of your business, and that you behaved with gross ingratitude and dishonesty. You will deliver a physical copy of this letter to every single one of the 40 clients who attended that party, personally." Julian stared at the photo. "That will ruin our reputation. We'll lose every luxury client we have." "Then don't sign," I said, leaning back in my chair. In 45 minutes, Evelyn's attorney friend files the corporate injunction. The sheriff will be at your office by Monday morning. You can explain your reputation to a judge. The silence in the room was absolute. Julian looked at Marcus Albright, hoping for some sliver of support. The banker just crossed his arms and looked out the window. Todd, Julian's minor partner who had been sitting quietly at the end of the table the entire time, finally spoke up. Julian, sign the paper. If you don't, I'm pulling my assets out of the company today and suing you for breach of fiduciary duty. Sign it. Julian's hand was shaking as he picked up the pen. He looked at Chloe. She didn't look back. She just nodded, her head buried in her hands. Julian signed the buyout agreement. Chloe signed it next. The funds must be transferred to my account by Monday at noon, I said, standing up and buttoning my charcoal suit jacket. The written apologies must be delivered by Friday. Once the funds clear and I receive confirmation of the deliveries, I will sign the corporate transfer agreement, giving you back full ownership of your company. Until then, I still own 51%. And if I see so much as a single late payment or a single client who hasn't received their letter, I will liquidate your entire inventory to the highest bidder. I picked up the leather portfolio. Evelyn stood up beside me, her expression calm and triumphant. Good day, gentlemen, I said. We walked out of the glass boardroom, our boots clicking firmly on the marble floors. We took the elevator down to the lobby, stepped out into the bright Ohio sunshine, and walked to my old Ford truck. How does it feel, Marshall? Evelyn asked, leaning against the passenger side door. It feels like a clean weld, I said, strong enough to hold. The money hit my bank account on Monday morning at 10:15, $125,000, paid in full. The letters took a little longer. On Wednesday evening, Caleb and I drove past the New Albany estate. We didn't stop, but we saw Julian's luxury SUV parked in the driveway. There were no client cars. The lawn was perfectly cut, but the yard was completely empty. No parties, no champagne. By Friday afternoon, Caleb's nephew confirmed that all 40 clients had received their letters. One of them, a wealthy local real estate developer named Thomas Finch, actually called my cell phone on Saturday morning. Marshall? Finch said, his voice deep and respectful. I received a very interesting letter from Julian and Chloe yesterday. I imagine you did, I said. I wanted to apologize personally, Finch said. I was at that party. I laughed at that sign. I had no idea you were the one who funded their operation, let alone laid that beautiful stone patio. That kind of craftsmanship is hard to find. I'm actually building a new commercial complex in Dublin next month, and I need a custom steel and stone entryway. You think you and Caleb could handle a job like that? We can handle anything, I said, but it won't be cheap. I don't expect it to be. I pay for quality. Give me a call when you're ready. I'll do that, Mr. Finch. Thank you. I hung up the phone and looked around my new apartment. It was a spacious two-bedroom place in Westerville, with a balcony that overlooked a quiet, wooded park. The sun was streaming through the windows, highlighting my old radio, my coffee maker, and my father's vintage pocket watch resting on the mantelpiece. Caleb came over that evening, carrying a 12-pack of cheap beer and a heavy cardboard box. We sat on the balcony, watching the trees sway in the warm summer breeze. So, Caleb said, cracking open a can and handing it to me. It's officially over. The company is theirs again. You're out. I'm out, I said, taking a long, cold sip. And I'm $125,000 richer. What are you going to do with all that cash? I'm going to partner with you, I said. We're going to buy that new CNC plasma table you've been drooling over for 3 years, and we're going to take on Thomas Finch's commercial project. Caleb's face lit up with a grin that split his weathered cheeks. Now that is a real plan. Oh, by the way, I brought something for you. He reached into the cardboard box and pulled out the heavy sheet of industrial steel that David cut for me in Marion. The raw, heavy metal was already starting to develop a beautiful, deep orange patina around the edges where the rain had touched it. We carried it inside and hung it right above my fireplace, securing it to the drywall with heavy-duty toggle bolts. The steel sign caught the light from the window, the clean, sharp letters standing out against the raw metal. It didn't say goodbye, and it didn't call anyone a freeloader. It just said, 51%. Welcome to the real world. It looks perfect, Caleb said, stepping back to admire the work. It does, I said, clinking my beer can against his. It looks like something that's going to last.